Hello, our viewers. Welcome to Walta Information and Public Relations website. And this is Molla Mtuku. Walta website presents its audience various topical issues by interviewing pertinent personalities. Today, my guest is His Excellency Ambassador Norman Ling. He's going to tell us all about the bilateral relations between Ethiopia and the UK. It's my pleasure to invite you to stay with us. Your Excellency Ambassador Norman Ling, first of all, I would like to appreciate your willingness for this interview. Could you first brief us the bilateral relations between the two countries?
It's very difficult to summarize a relationship that's been going on for roughly 170 years since the first British ambassador came to Ethiopia. But the relationship is wide and it is deep. We engage on political, social, economic, humanitarian, cultural subjects right across the board.
How significant is the development aid of UK to Ethiopia in the past 5 years from 2006 to 2010?
Well, development assistance has for many years been a part of our support for Ethiopia, and it has grown very rapidly. In recent years, the largest British development program in Africa has been here in Ethiopia. We're currently spending a little under £250 million, and the intention is to increase that sum further. Let me be clear, this is £250 million in each year. So we have been spending close to £250 million in each year. If you multiply that by 30, you get the sum in birr. It has been an upward trajectory for much of the last decade. About 10 years ago, the sum that we spent here was only in the order of 10 to 20 million pounds. So you can see that it has increased by something like 1,000% or more. So the trajectory has been upwards, and that's because we are involved in some very large programs.
Could you brief us your plan in this regard for the coming 5 years from 2011 to 2050?
I can certainly brief you on the next 3 to 4 years because we have just carried out a bilateral aid review here in Ethiopia, but also in all the other countries around the world where we have a development program. And we have resolved under that bilateral aid review to increase our development assistance further. Over the next 4 years, we expect to increase spending, as I say, from the current level of about £250 million up to something like £400 million.
You told me that the development aid to Ethiopia has been showing an upward trajectory.
Correct.
What is the reason behind that?
The reason behind that is, one, that there is great need here in Ethiopia. Ethiopia remains a very poor country, which requires development assistance to develop further. It can't rely on its own resources. And secondly, we believe that so far the development assistance that we have given to Ethiopia has produced good results. We measure our results in various ways, but the obvious measure is the Millennium Development Goals, and Ethiopia has, in recent years, made good progress against the Millennium Development Goals. So we are, in effect, putting more money in because we believe that that will continue to produce results.
As you know, Ethiopia has registered a double-digit economic growth for the past 8 consecutive years, and now it has begun implementing its 5 years growth and transformation plan. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I personally welcome the growth in the economy. I'm not convinced myself that the growth statistics are quite as good as that, but undoubtedly Ethiopia has been one of the fastest growing economies in Africa and in the last 5 years in the world, and that is good news because providing social services like education and health funded by foreign donors only takes you so far. For a country to be able to provide for its own people longer term, you need growth in the economy. And it is good that we are seeing that growth here in Ethiopia.
What's wrong with statistics?
Well, economists will always argue about statistics. The IMF has a rather lower range of statistics for Ethiopia's growth, but it's still very positive.
As part and parcel of the growth and transformation plan, Ethiopia has begun building a huge project on the Nile River. Do you have any specific plan to help that project?
Well, I don't think it is true to say that it's begun building. It has an idea for constructing a large new dam on the Nile. The first thing I would say is that we obviously support the growth and transformation plan because, building on what I said before, it is important that Ethiopia has continued growth. The only way it is going to rise out of poverty is if it can achieve what a few countries around the world have achieved, which is consistent growth for a period of 25 years or more. Therefore it is good that the new plan for the economy focuses on growth, and obviously we will do our best as a country, as a close partner of Ethiopia, to help it achieve those objectives within the plan. As regards the dam, we recognize that central to growth is energy. Countries do not grow without energy. Here in Ethiopia, the natural source of much energy is hydroelectric power, because Ethiopia is blessed with large quantities of water for power purposes, so it makes sense for there to be yet more dams, yet more production of hydroelectricity. And I would also add that another positive that we have noticed about this particular proposal is that it seems to have united people right across the political spectrum. It seems to be a unifying factor here in Ethiopia, and there are perhaps too few factors which unify the population of Ethiopia. So that obviously is something to be welcomed. So overall, we are in favor of new power stations. When it comes to this particular dam, all I would say is that we very much hope that a proper economic case has been made, that an environmental and social impact study is done, because that's important whenever you're undertaking any project of any size, but particularly a project of this size. You need to ensure that the benefits are really there, and that any negative effects can be mitigated. And finally, there is also an issue clearly about ensuring that the flow of water is not stopped during construction or indeed afterwards, and that countries downstream continue to benefit as well from the waters of the Nile.
Many scholars have already explained that the dam has no negative impact to the flow of water. So what do you say about that?
I'm not an expert, but whenever there's any large project, I think there is a specific bit of assessment that is done. to ensure both that environmentally but also socially that people within the area are not negatively impacted. I think that should be done in this case as in all other cases. It's in the interests of Ethiopians as much as anybody else.
Let me take you to the 1950s agreement between Sudan and Egypt, which was made under the auspices of the UK. How do you evaluate that agreement with reference to international laws of water?
Well, that was an agreement of its time, which, as you point out, was at the very end of the colonial era. There have been many developments since then, including the Nile Basin Initiative. The colonial or former colonial power no longer has an interest in trying to apportion the waters of the Nile. It has an interest, along with the rest of the international community, in ensuring that the waters of the Nile are fairly apportioned and that all countries along the Nile can benefit from the river. And certainly it has an interest in ensuring that concerns, disputes over the waters do not lead to conflict.
Okay, Your Excellency Ambassador Norman, let's move on to another topic, the trade relations between the two countries. Could you tell us the trajectory of the trade relations between Ethiopia and UK?
Trade and indeed investment has grown in both directions, which I'm very pleased about. In the last 4 years, British exports to Ethiopia have doubled. In the last 4 years or so, Ethiopian exports to the UK have tripled. So you see very considerable growth. Part of it driven, I imagine, by growth within the Ethiopian economy, but also, I think, by a growing interest in companies on both sides to expand the trade. I'm personally interested in promoting investment as well, and we are seeing a greater interest by British companies in investment in Ethiopia.
What are the major exim items from both sides?
Well, the way in which trade and investment grows is dependent largely on the extent to which the particular economies are developed. Ethiopia is still a developing economy, heavily reliant on agricultural produce. So much of what it exports to the UK is precisely that, agricultural produce, food of one sort or another. Clearly coffee is important, but other agricultural products as well. In terms of what the UK either trades with Ethiopia, exports to Ethiopia, or always in the areas where it's seeking to invest in Ethiopia, that's much more diversified because we have a more diversified developed economy. The main exports are in areas like transport machinery, machinery more generally, power generation, that sort of thing. And then in terms of investment, there has been investment here in the leather industry because that's growing. There is a desire to invest in agriculture. There's been some investment in flowers and other agricultural sectors. And as Ethiopia develops, I think there will be a particular interest in investment in, for instance, food and beverages.
How significant is the number of investors from UK here in Ethiopia?
The history until now is that we've had quite a lot of investors, but their investments have been relatively small scale. What we're hoping for is that we will get some of the very large British companies to invest here, which will send a signal to British companies more generally that Ethiopia is a place where you can do business. You don't have to be small with a very small niche. That the big companies that do business all around the world should now consider Ethiopia a country of sufficient size to serve as a market. I also believe that's good for Ethiopia because these companies, these British or increasingly British international companies, because they are so large, they deserve to be called international. they have very highly developed corporate social responsibility programs. So they are very careful when they invest. They pay good salaries by the standards of the market. They ensure that when they build something, a plant or any sort of construction, that it is done in an environmentally and socially responsible way. They also help train their staff and provide business to local companies. So they serve as very important development vehicles in themselves. So I think there is a double advantage here to Ethiopia in attracting British investment.
Okay, Your Excellency Ambassador Norman Lim, let's move to another issue, peace and security in the Horn of Africa. Could you tell us your evaluation of peace challenges in the Horn?
The Horn has historically been a place of great instability, and clearly that is not something which is good for the people of the Horn, or indeed for the international community more generally. Today too we see the consequences, not just for the Horn, but for the world at large, of instability, for instance in Somalia, which impacts not only on the people of Somalia, but also because of piracy and terrorism on the world at large. So we all have an interest in trying to restore peace, a measure of good governance, both political and economic, to the Horn of Africa.
What are the major problems in Somalia that aggravate the problems there?
Well, the fundamental issue is a lack of good governance. If you have an administration in a country which seeks to rule that country or state in the interests broadly of the people, then you will see development, you will see growth, and you will see peace and security. If you have an absence of good government, indeed a vacuum, then you will see breakdown in law, order, and an absence of economic development and indeed humanitarian crises breaking out time and again. And that is the situation certainly in much of South and Central Somalia.
Some analysts say that the interference of other countries in the Horn also aggravates the situation in Somalia.
Do you want to be specific?
Yes, the Eritrean government is poisoning the situation, the peace situation in the Horn of Africa, particularly in Somalia.
Well, Eritrea, of course, has to answer for its actions, and Eritrea has been sanctioned by the United Nations because of its support for elements within Somalia which are undermining peace, security, and indeed carrying out terrorist acts. But Eritrea is also one of the countries of the Horn, so there cannot be peace and security long-term in the Horn without Eritrea being brought into peace and security structures.
Do you believe that the sanction made by the UN has some reasons?
It has certainly sent a signal that the international community disapproves of any actions by any state aimed at undermining peace and security in the region.
But still, there are evidences which show the Eritrean government is highly interfering in other countries in the Horn of Africa. How could we say that this sanction is functioning? Or
well, obviously, if there is more evidence of actions by the Eritreans undermining peace and security, then I'm sure that the United Nations would look at that. That is, in my view, however, not the key issue here. The key issue is that one needs to tackle the source of any instability and do so at source, not just deal with the consequences. There is also a tension between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and that, many would say, is fueling a great deal of the insecurity within the Horn more generally. and my government, along with the international community, would like to see a reduction in that tension between Ethiopia and Eritrea, because we will believe that that would lead to improved peace and security in the Horn.
Ethiopia is just one of the countries that's affected by the ill activities of Eritrea. But I'm asking you, as a whole, its activities in the Horn, because there are many reports that the Eritrean government is just interfering in Somalia, in Djibouti, and in Ethiopia, and also in Sudan. Just when we see the whole, the entire issue, is it possible to take the Eritrean government as one of the peaceful structures in the Horn of Africa?
Well, as I say, Eritrea must answer for its actions.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Ambassador Norman. Just I asked you your evaluation as you are here in the Horn of Africa. Let me add one question. How could you describe the role that some Horn countries are playing to bring an enduring and lasting peace and stability in the region, for instance, Ethiopia?
Ethiopia clearly, as the largest country in the Horn, with the largest population, is critical to future peace and security in the Horn region. It can play a role in supporting the creation of two Sudans to its north. It can also play a constructive role, and has done, in support of peace and security in Somalia. Let's not forget, of course, that Ethiopia, though relatively stable, is the largest country, as I say, certainly in population terms, and sits at the center of the Horn. Ethiopia itself in the past has been a cause of instability as a result of poor governance, and much of our development effort, the discussion that we had before, is indeed geared to ensuring that Ethiopia continues to develop, not just economically and socially, but politically as well, to ensure that it remains a peaceful place and that it provides for its people in a way which will ensure that this country remains peaceful, stable and prosperous.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Ambassador. If you have anything to add, Walter Information Center is happy to entertain it.
Well, it would be that last point, that very often when perhaps Ethiopians look at the Horn and talk about instability, they look to countries like Somalia, Sudan and even Eritrea and point to the instability there. We must not forget Ethiopia's own history and the very real importance of protecting Ethiopia from such instability. It doesn't just cross borders, it can break out in countries themselves. And so the focus on development is very important, and that shouldn't just be economic and social development. It should be the evolution of politics and greater freedoms within Ethiopia itself.
Thank you very much.
Okay. My pleasure. Good to see you.